Hello everyone, it's Darkseeker here again. Welcome back for another video. Now so far I've done 2 videos on getting to know me. So why am I doing these videos? Well, they were requested. Some of you wanted to know more about me. If you want to watch parts 1 and 2, there is a playlist on my channel entitled Get to Know Darkseeker. This video will feature me playing Armor Druid with Line Cracker. Now the aim is to survive until you can pull off your combo and fatigue your opponent, since they can't get through all of the armor and you just keep shuffling Jade Idols to avoid fatigue. Now these games are on casual mode because on the ladder people concede too early, whereas my opponents in casual are very accommodating, so thank you to them. If you want the deck code, it's in the video description, but remember, a new armor eating card is coming to Descent of Dragons, so a deck like this may not work after the expansion. But the reason I'm playing the deck is because it allows for long games. So while the game is running in the background, it gives me a chance to talk about me in this video. I won't be commenting on the plays that I make, since this is an easy deck to play most of the time. It's simply survive, draw your combo pieces, play the combo, and just sit back. Before we get to know Darkseeker, Part 3, there is a giveaway that you may be interested in. On December the 19th, Blizzard will make available the Winter Veil Wonder Bundle. That's really quite the mouthful, but it will feature the new Druid hero, Dame Hazelbark. I'll be giving away 4 of these bundles to 4 lucky winners, and to be in with a chance to win, all you need to do is reply to this video telling me what your favourite kind of cake is. My favourite is 4-layer chocolate fudge cake with ice cream. You know, if you follow me on Twitter, you'll have seen a bunch of photos of 4-layer chocolate fudge cake with ice cream. It is truly delicious. If you don't like cake, which I would find hard to believe, tell me instead what your favourite chocolate is. If you don't like chocolate, well, I don't know what to say. But this will be a food-themed giveaway. And the rules are simple. Be a subscriber of this channel and comment before the deadline, which is 12 PM UK time on the 15th of December. I will then pick out 4 lucky winners. Remember, if we are not already friends in game, I will have to become your friend, so you'll have to send me your Battle.net ID and which server you're on. You can do that by replying to the comment or by sending me a private message on Twitter. And once we are friends, I can then gift you the bundle. And if you do win, please remember to claim your prize and send me that information. Sometimes the winners forget to come forward and don't send me the Battle.net ID or the server info, and so I can't send the gift. So please make sure that you look out for my reply to your comment if you are a winner, and then we can go from there. Okay, this game is underway. We are slowly going through the motions of playing this Armor Druid deck, so let's get on with Get to Know Darkseeker, Part 3. Okay, so in Part 1 we covered where I live, my gaming history, TV interests, favourite books, and travelling on the London Underground. In Part 2 we covered music, podcasts, food, politics, and we talked about the awesome people that make up the Wild Mode community. So we may revisit a couple of those topics in this video, but let's begin with Darkseeker's take on social media and living a life in the online world. So, simply put, there are 4 principles that I subscribe to when traversing the online world. Don't be rude, don't be angry, just chill, and don't take anything too seriously. I mean, the online world, it's not real, right? Right? Or have I got that all wrong? Is the online world the most real thing that we live in? Maybe that's something to think about. I don't know. Well, let's look at Darkseeker's take on living in the supposed real world. That's the world around us that we can see and that we can feel. Because I know some of you are interested in the kind of person that I am and my sort of philosophy on life. And generally, I try to live my life by following these two principles. Firstly, be nice to people. Try and do something nice for others every day. This could be, doing something nice for a family member, a friend, a colleague, or, I don't know, someone that's homeless on the street. If you can do something nice more than once a day, then great, fantastic. And what you do for people can vary. It can be something big, or it can be something small. What you think is a small good deed could actually be a big deal for that person. It could make the biggest difference to them, and you don't even know it. Going above and beyond to help others, even if it costs you something, does feel good, and that can be a hard thing to practice consistently, but it's certainly, I think, a good way to live one's life. The second principle I try to follow is don't help others in order to expect a reward. Do it because you want to. And I wouldn't say that I'm perfect with following all of this. We all make mistakes and we try to learn from those mistakes and move on. We are human after all. Friends have often told me that based on this sort of philosophy of living life, that I should be a politician, that I would be good at representing the interests of the community and taking care of people. But people also tell me that I'm too nice and that I'm too honest, and I find it really hard to lie. So I guess I would make a terrible politician on that basis. But yes, the two most popular career aspirations that people have told me to go for are, firstly, politician, and secondly, nature documentary narrator like David Attenborough of the BBC, because of course some of you seem to really like my voice, and I'm still not sure entirely why that is, but a lot of you tell me that you find it relaxing and that you chill out to it, which is a really nice compliment, so thank you. Okay, let's move on to something a little bit more light-hearted and fun. Let's chat about cake, because of course that is the theme of the giveaway. Recently I took a short break in Littlehampton, which is located on the south coast of the UK. It's basically a very quiet seaside town, and there's a great restaurant there called the River Breeze Restaurant. If any of you are based in the UK and you're looking for a good place to go and eat, go eat at the River Breeze Restaurant in Littlehampton. It's basically like an old-fashioned sort of English cafe. They serve traditional English dishes, pie and mash, fish and chips, pie and chips, steak and veg, stuff like that. And their puddings are absolutely tremendous. And every time I visit there, and I usually go a couple of times a year to Littlehampton for a short break, every time I visit there, I ask for the 4-layer chocolate fudge cake and ice cream. And their ice cream is proper ice cream, and their cake is proper homemade cake. It's absolutely delicious. You get massive portion sizes for really cheap prices, because in coastal towns that's how they roll. Value for money is really good. In London, which is where I live, you'd probably get half the portion size and be charged double, because that's just how things are in London. But that's why I like visiting the south coast in the UK. The people are also so different. They're so chilled, they're so relaxed. Life moves at a much slower pace. If you live in a fast-moving city and work a job with long hours, I guess you can become somewhat envious of those who lead a slower paced life. In fact, people who own the hotels down in these coastal towns, I think a lot of them started out life in a busy city and then decided to move down to the coast and start up a hotel for what they say is a quieter, more relaxed, more enjoyable life. And of course, waking up to the sound of the sea, the waves, every morning, I think is just really good for the soul. I can certainly attest to that. Okay, let's move on. Phones and technology. So, I remember getting my first mobile phone back in 1999. It was some kind of very basic Motorola phone. It was very bulky. I don't even recall the model. But in 2002, I got the Nokia 3510i, and that was a really small phone that saw me through university. Of course, I was on a pay-as-you-go contract, and well, it's not a contract, is it? Pay as you go is just pay as you go. You simply pay as you use the phone, and the calls and the texts were really expensive. You could also play a couple of really sort of rubbish games on the phone. I can't even remember what the games were, but that was it. All you could really do was call and text. But still, it was at that time frame. Mobile phones were expensive, the cost of calls and texts was very expensive, so it was still cheaper back then to email people if you wanted to communicate, or call them up on a landline, rather than making calls on your mobile phone. So, of course, now things have changed. The mobile packages you get with unlimited minutes, unlimited texts and unlimited data, they're really, really good value for money. Of course, if you know where to look for the good deals. Later, I got an iPhone. It was the iPhone 3G, and I think that must have been in 2009. This was just after the original iPhone came out in 2007. And that phone really, really helped to revolutionize the technology world. I mean, what was awesome about the iPhone was the clean interface, sort of the organized structure to it. And for the first time, phones really felt smart, hence the term smartphone. And that phone, my iPhone 3G, that lasted about 10 years, believe it or not. I only used the phone for 3 or 4 years, but then I gave it to my mum. And then she used it up until earlier this year when it stopped charging. But yeah, through all that time, that phone remained fast, responsive, and the battery was excellent. So can't really complain. So those early Nokia phones, those early iPhones, such good quality. And they don't make them like that anymore. I think phones are not built to last anymore. They're built to break after a couple of years, and then you've got to replace them. So anyway, after all of that, I went through some stints with some other phones. I think I went from the iPhone to the Samsung Galaxy S2 in 2011, and then the HTC One M7 in 2013. And these were both, the Galaxy and the HTC One, these were both flagship phones with the Android OS. And that was my first exposure to Android. It wasn't as smooth as iOS. It wasn't as clean, it wasn't as efficient, but in some ways that was part of the charm. Android felt more customizable, it was sort of more free, more open, and from that point onward, I've stuck with Android phones ever since. And I think after owning a couple of flagship phones, I started questioning whether flagship phones were really worth the money. And so after that, I went through a couple of very cheap sort of mid-range phones. I think one was a Motorola phone. But then, in 2017, I discovered the OnePlus brand. And OnePlus, they're a Chinese company that specialise in making good quality phones with really, really good specifications for lower prices. Certainly lower prices compared to Samsung and Apple. And they've developed a bit of a cult following. I purchased the OnePlus 5 2 years ago, and it was phenomenal. Smooth phone, no lag, good battery, and most importantly for me, it played Hearthstone really well. So I had that phone for 2.5 years, and a couple of weeks ago I decided to replace it. So my most recent phone that I bought is the Samsung Galaxy A70, which is a mid-range phone, but it has a massive battery. And actually the battery in that phone is better than the battery in most flagship phones. And it's also got fast charging. So a very good friend of mine said to me recently, because I was asking him for advice, and he said to me, flagship phones don't matter anymore. Mid-range phones, if you do your research and check the specs carefully, they can be fast enough to do everything you need. And in this case, we've got a battery that lasts all day, sometimes 2 days, and I can't complain. Well, I can complain. Samsung and their bloatware. The bloatware is really annoying, but it's not as bad as it was a few years ago when I owned the Galaxy S2. But I have spent some time disabling all the rubbish on my Samsung phone now. And it's interesting, if I'd spent a few £100 more, I could have bought the Galaxy S10, which is a flagship phone. But to be honest, I don't think my experience with the S10 would be much different to what I'm experiencing with the A70. So at least in my mind, mid-range phones, I think they're fast enough, and they do what most people need them to do. One of my big annoyances though is whenever phone companies release updates. When you see a new update released, you go online, you see lots of people complaining about functionality in their phones being broken. So be wary of phone updates is one thing I'd recommend. Likewise, be wary of Windows updates on your PC. Yesterday, I caught Windows 10 trying to update my NVIDIA graphics card driver. And that is so stupid. Because if I want to update the graphics card driver, and graphics card drivers, by the way, are not to be messed with. They're quite delicate, and sometimes you install a driver and it won't perform very well, or you'll see performance in games suffer, and you revert back to an older driver. There is, a school of thought that says do not update a graphics card driver unless you need to. So on that basis, why Windows was trying to auto-update the driver without telling me, I'm not sure. So anyway, I managed to stop the update and actually hide it from Windows. But that actually required lots of research online, and I had to install an additional tool. So Microsoft, from what I've found with Windows 10, they don't make it easy to control the whole update process. In fact, you lose control over the update process. In other words, if Windows thinks that an update is good, it's going to install it, and your choice is taken away. Okay, let's move on. And let's talk a bit of Hearthstone, and let's talk about my favourite expansion. So my favourite Hearthstone expansion to this day is Naxxramas from 2014. Or rather, back then, it was called an adventure. And it's amazing that cards from Naxxramas still see play today. So Mad Scientist, still one of the best 2-drops in the game. Poison Seeds, still seeing play in slow Druid decks. Duplicate gets played in Secrets Mage. Sludge Belcher will see play in Reno decks. Deathlord, still played in slow control decks, and Voidcaller, still played, of course, in a whole multitude of wild Warlock decks. And here's an interesting question: why hasn't Voidcaller been nerfed yet? And let's not forget Avenge, still one of the better Paladin secrets, even though Secrets Paladin isn't really popular anymore. So anyway, that expansion left a really significant footprint on the Hearthstone world, and as I say, the effects of it are still felt today. Otherwise, I'd say that I've enjoyed all of the expansions and adventures, some more than others, but I haven't actively disliked anything. As long as I get something new to experiment with and play with, I'm pretty easy to please. Okay, sticking with the Hearthstone theme, let's talk about the deck that got me my first legend rank, because that's something that a couple of you have asked me to talk about. The deck that got me to legend for the first time was a wild mid-range hunter deck back in 2016. This was back when Sludge Belcher and N'Zoth were actually played in mid-range hunter. You had a strong early game with Mad Scientist and Animal Companion. You then progressed to the mid-game with Piloted Shredders, Sludge Belchers and Savannah Highmanes. Do you guys remember when that card was a staple in most hunter decks? Now, nobody plays Savannah Himane. How that card has fallen, and yet it's still, in my opinion at least, a pretty good card because of the death rattle. Now in your late game in this deck you play the original Dr. Boom and Call of the Wild, and then you finish off with N'Zoth. If you're interested in watching me play that mid-range hunter deck, it's actually the first video that you see when you go to my YouTube channel. It's actually profiled on the front page. Okay, now to just to finish off, because we've covered quite a lot in this video. As usual, I want to thank the community. In my previous video, I went through a whole list of names of awesome people in the wild mode community that I appreciate, but in this video there are two people that I really want to thank and focus on. Consti the Pro and Philip, both of you have been awesome to talk to on chats and have kept me sane and entertained when I travel home from work on that really long 90-minute train journey. So thank you for being there. And thank you for supporting the channel. Consti, thanks for sending me pictures of cake recently, and thanks for chatting about awesome anime, and specifically I recall on the 9th of November you told me all about the history of cake, so thank you for that. I was suitably informed and educated about cake. That made my day, so thank you. Philip, thanks for the great Hearthstone and pro wrestling chats. And I do want to pose one question to you, and you can answer it later on Twitter if you want. So I know you are a big wrestling fan, and so I'll ask you a wrestling related question. Chris Jericho is a wrestler that has had a long career that started out in the 1990s, the early 1990s, and he is still going strong today. My question to you is, what are your top 3 versions of Chris Jericho? Over the span of his career, I count at least 8 strong versions of his character that he has put out there over time, then he's changed and adapted. So I'll send you a direct message on Twitter, and you can get back to me on what you feel are his top 3 versions or presentations of his character. If anyone else out there is a wrestling fan, feel free to message me on Twitter. Happy to have discussion, happy to chat about it. Okay, thank you to everyone for watching. I hope you found this video somewhat informative. If you were interested in knowing a little bit more about me, then I hope the content of this video wasn't too heavy or too much. But yeah, that's all we've got for this video, and I mean, I didn't really talk about Armor Druid. If you are interested in playing the deck, there is a deck code in the video description below, and hopefully you've watched the footage in this video and you can figure out how the combo works and why it is pretty effective. And do remember to enter the giveaway. The winners will be announced here on Sunday the 14th of December. So until then, take care everyone, and have fun with the new Descent of Dragons expansion, which drops on the 10th of December.